Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Yes, we are talking about that storm system that's going to be rolling in, already starting to make its way towards us, already starting to see some of those lighter showers out there, but we are in store for more wet weather in the works. When we look at our overnight lows, lots of 50s out there, and we're going to have 59 degrees for Poway, 57 degrees for Miramar. You're also looking at the 60s right there along the North County coastline, as well as 59 degrees for Oceanside. You got 62 degrees. That's going to be for downtown. Widespread with the cloud cover and also our daytime highs that go right back into 60s. We're seeing 60s across most of the county. And when you think back just a couple days ago, we were into the 80s and 90s across the inland valleys, but taking quite a dip when it comes to our temperatures with this incoming area of low pressure. You have 69 degrees for Escondido tomorrow, 68 degrees for La Mesa, 70 degrees expected for Chula Vista. We are talking about weather impact alert days because of rain in the forecast. Now by tomorrow, we start to see some of the lighter showers moving in, and then we're talking about more of the light rainfall. But then we get into late tomorrow night. That's when we start to get the accumulation of heavier rainfall. That's going to last through about Saturday, and then we take a little bit more of a break on Sunday, and then we gear up for chances again, and that is going to be by Monday of next week. So elevated flood concerns out there for Saturday. The heaviest rainfall is expected on Saturday. When we set the clock in motion and see some of those accumulations, we are talking about a heavy rainfall, especially when you take into consideration the fact that we mainly see a few hundredths of an inch on a daily basis. That's like your normal value for each day. Now we are looking at the bulk of that moisture arriving by Saturday, and even evacuation warnings that have been issued in LA County at burn scar locations when you're talking about Eaton as well as the Palisades and other areas in LA County. So they are under an evacuation warning that will continue all the way through the weekend forecast because of their totals, which are going to be higher than ours. You're looking at about 3 inches of rainfall for LA, Oxnard close to about an inch and a half, and a little bit more than that for Santa Barbara. Flooding is going to be a concern. Flood watch has been issued for these areas, and you can see it just kind of trickling down all the way towards San Diego County. We are looking at 2 inches of rainfall, and that's going to be for downtown, as well as even some significant rainfall for the desert. So this early winter storm bringing in these higher rainfall totals. When we look across the entire county, it looks to be about 2 or more inches of rainfall anticipated. And as I mentioned, the bulk of that moisture is set to fall on Saturday, and so as a result, we are looking at a flood watch that will also go into effect for our county. A little bit more than 2 inches when all is said and done. That is what forecast models are projecting. That would be for downtown. You're also looking at 2.5 inches for Escondido, the same for Oceanside. Our in-house model is suggesting about 2 inches of rainfall, which could happen, and that would be across the mountains. But the National Weather Service has been going a little bit more with those rainfall totals, and that's for the mountains especially, and that's because we are talking about the potential of seeing some downpours. So some of those stronger cells that could promote a little bit more of the heavier rainfall that would add to those totals. So that was kind of the higher end of it when we are looking at this, but forecast models have continued to show a lot of rain anticipated, and most of it falling on Saturday. So these totals take into consideration late Friday night, and then talking about through Sunday morning when things start to taper off by about roughly Sunday afternoon as we go into the start of next week. So we have this area of low pressure that's already been producing some scattered showers, heavier rainfall across Northern California, moving in towards Central California as well, and also some strong gusty winds. For us, the winds don't look to be as strong, and that's because we're talking more about 35 miles per hour. A few isolated spots could get up to about 40 miles per hour. That's not at the threshold for a wind advisory. They would have to be about 50 miles per hour or more. So we're not focusing on the gusty winds. We are going to have some winds picking up. It is going to be gusty at times, but not strong enough to promote or to really prompt that wind alert. When we look closer towards Southern California, we've been seeing some scattered showers over the past few hours, just kind of moving in and starting to see that activity moving onshore here in San Diego County. So we are gearing up for our chances to increase tonight and then last all the way into the weekend. So the flood watch that I had previously mentioned, that is for the entire county. We start about 4 a.m. on Saturday, lasting all the way through about 10 p.m. on Saturday as well. So Saturday, that's when we're expecting the bulk of that moisture. With that being said, when you see this flood watch across the county, that means that we could be seeing some of those flood advisories going out. Also talking about flash flood warnings because of thunderstorm activity that could promote a lot more of excessive rainfall, heavy rainfall, leading to the ponding on the roadways, leading to flood concerns as well. And so that is going to be the big alert as we go into Saturday. Another thing worth mentioning, and this typically happens when we get these heavier storm systems that roll in, also the San Diego River, especially Fashion Valley. We are monitoring the San Diego River because of water levels rising from excessive rainfall. And so we could see some of those barriers going out and telling people you can't drive through this area because of some flooding. When we look at the clock and set it in motion, cloud cover really dominating right now, but we start to see the influx of moisture moving on shore, and that's around 12:20 later on tonight. And then we go into tomorrow. That's when we're looking at more of the light to moderate rainfall. So this is about 6 a.m. in the morning for our Friday. I want to repeat this. Friday does not look to be a total washout by any means. And that's because we're looking and focusing more so on some lighter moisture. But that's when you start to see more of those raindrops coming down compared to recent days where we haven't had any rainfall. So we are looking at some light and even moderate at times, some showers moving in. So around 6 a.m. you're seeing a little bit more on the moderate side across the mountains, but relatively light overall. We see some clouds out there. We see some isolated activity developing around 1:55 for tomorrow afternoon. You're seeing that near Bonita as well as in the mountains, but then you start to get the influx of moisture as we get into about Friday night. So that's when we start to see more of those moderate pockets picking up around 5:55, about 5:50 for our Friday evening. And then we go into the rest of the night, still looking at that light to moderate range. So seeing that activity near Poway as well as trickling in towards Temecula, seeing it across the mountains, desert mountain slopes, and also seeing it impact for Chula Vista around 8:55. But then we get into the late night hours for Friday night, lasting all the way through Saturday. That's when we start to have more of an influx of moisture. Now you're talking moderate to heavy. With that being said, early morning hours, you have that for Oceanside, stronger pocket of rainfall moving in, and then we get into our Saturday. More of that moisture in the forecast favoring North County around 7:10 for Saturday morning, and then we see heavier stuff, even heavier moving in. That's going to be around 11:30 in the morning on Saturday. You're seeing these deeper reds indicating some thunderstorm activity potentially popping up, and then also talking about a lot more of that heavier rainfall that's basically taking over most of the county. We see more of those surges of moisture moving in around 1:25 in the afternoon hours on Saturday, even getting caught up right there across the mountains. And that's why I was showing you the difference between our in-house model suggesting about 2 inches of rainfall around that point, but then the National Weather Service saying we could see about 3 to 5. That's because if this lingers a little while longer, you get those heavier totals, especially when you're talking about really strong pockets of rainfall and also the potential for those thunderstorms. Most of that activity starts to lift out as we go into the evening hours for Saturday. We're still seeing some activity developing right there along the 15, stretching all the way from Poway down towards roughly Miramar, and seeing that activity, and then even some showers impacting the South Bay. That's around 4:10 for Saturday. Then we see an isolated heavier pocket of rainfall or two. That's near the mountains, Pine Valley, seeing that activity, and that's near Mount Laguna around 6:35 for our Saturday, and then evening hours, and then everything starts to calm down once we get to that point. So we could see some overnight showers as we go from about Saturday into Sunday. So that's where the adjustment is right there. Now, when we look at the setup in the atmosphere, because I want to also stress this, we're not done yet. So once we get past the weekend, we have even more rainfall in the works. Area of low pressure, we've been hearing people talk about this atmospheric river. Well, the low does tap into an atmospheric river. That's going to be a weakening system as it gets closer towards us, but the low itself moving over us, that's what's going to prompt the thunderstorm activity. It is going to be an early season winter storm, that instability with any heat that we have to basically absorb with the heating of the day. That's what's going to be the fuel for the fire. So when you're talking about the thunderstorm activity, that's why it looks to be favorable on Saturday. Then you're looking at another area of low pressure that moves in. Additional rainfall totals on top of the ones that I already showed you. That brings us to additional totals. This will be about roughly Monday into early morning hours. That would be on Tuesday. We could see an additional ½ inch of rainfall to about 1 inch west of the mountains, and then about 1 to 2 inches for the mountains. That's going to be with the following system that kicks off next week. But wait, there's more. Then you have a weak area of high pressure that builds in. That's going to be on Wednesday. Wednesday looks to be that dry day in our extended forecast, and then we gear up for yet another area of low pressure, and that brings in more rain chances for Thursday and Friday of next week. So we have quite an active pattern with a series of low pressure systems sweeping through. Now, as I mentioned, we do have Friday as a red box. There have been some adjustments when it comes to Friday. The whole entire day is not going to be a total washout, but that morning drive is going to be a slick one, as we do have showers in the works, and then we start to see it returning into the evening hours. So that's why I put the red box there. For Saturday, you are looking at more of the heavier activity. That's when it's expected to be the heaviest, is going to be during that time frame where you have that flood watch. And so that's about 4 a.m. on Saturday morning, lasting all the way until 10 p.m. on Saturday night. It could be lifted early, just kind of depends on what's going to happen as far as the heavy rainfall and when things start to taper off. We could see an isolated shower or two as we go into the morning hours. We call that wraparound moisture, so the low exiting. That's going to be on Sunday. Now we are looking at those chances, and actually I'm going to give you a heads up. I could actually take that red box off by tomorrow for Sunday because those chances have started to scale back. But what I would do is actually put it again on Monday, so it just kind of we get closer to the rain event, we get a little bit more confidence with what's going to happen. You could see that going up, and that would be on Monday. The likelihood of that is pretty high for tomorrow. That's because I just showed you that other area of low pressure that's going to be moving in, adding an additional potentially upwards of 1 inch of rainfall west of the mountains, and then 1 to 2 inches for the mountains on what's already going to be saturated grounds. Then we get into about Tuesday morning. We're looking at more chances for some scattered showers in the forecast. We dry out by the middle of the week, and then we gear up for yet another area of low pressure that is going to be moving in by Thursday and Friday of next week. So there are your red boxes indicating weather impact alert days for the mountains as well as for the desert with this incoming storm system, and then still some activity that's going to be in the works for next week. Of course, we'll continue to keep you posted on all the details. Thank you for bearing with us. This has been a tricky forecast, especially when you're talking about an area of low pressure that kind of just cuts itself off in the jet stream. It's going to be doing its own thing. So as a result, we just kind of put the red boxes there indicating that that's where we're focusing that threat for that active weather pattern. But the one thing I want you to take away from this is that Saturday. Saturday looks to be the heaviest rainfall. Please be careful out there. You still even have time, especially for tomorrow. Want to go ahead and check when it does come to sandbags. On our website, cbs8.com, we have a list of locations for the city of San Diego as well as for the county. Hopefully you can get out there if you need to, if your home is prone to flooding when we get some of these stronger storms that move through. And then, as mentioned, still brace for more wet weather and more adjustments when it comes to weather impact alert days all the way into next week. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.